Scene 4, the palace at Forres. If you recall, at the very end of scene 3, Macbeth and Banquo said, when we have time again in the future, let us, let's think about, until that point, let's think about what's transpired. And when we get some time, let's talk to each other. But let's not talk to anybody else about what's going on. And remember, Ross and Angus showed up in order to, present those honors to Macbeth, but also to bring them and say, hey, the king wants to see you. The king wants to congratulate you. The king wants to honor you. The king has an announcement, that type of thing. And so he says, well, let's go. Let's go see the king, and that's where we're headed. Always look at these actor notes, these stage directions to help you in case there's something that I do leave out or you need to come back to on your own. We see the king talking to Malcolm here right at the beginning. Remember, going back to the cast of characters, Malcolm is his oldest son. The other one's name is Donalbain. Donalbain really doesn't play a main factor in this play, but Malcolm does. So keep an eye on that. As we go through this, try to pick out what is the big announcement that the king has to make. Okay? I'm sure Macbeth has a certain idea as to what it is. If the prophecies of the previous scene were to come true this quick, because remember, from the moment he heard that they addressed him as a Thane of Cawdor to the time that it happened, in our version, it was just like a page, half a page. And so when the announcement is made, Macbeth might be thinking, hey, something could possibly be done today. And look at that and see if you can pick out exactly what the announcement is and what Macbeth's reaction is. Scene 4. The very beginning, we find out the king and his son Malcolm are inquiring about the Thane of Cawdor, the original Thane of Cawdor. Because from here on out, the Thane of Cawdor is also the Thane of Glamis, is also Macbeth. Okay? And they find out a little bit, and this is an individual we never meet, but we just keep hearing about. Is he dead yet? Excuse me. My liege, they are not yet come back, but I have spoke with one that saw him die. He confessed his treason and implored your highness a deep repentance. So he was, very sorry for what he did and begged for your forgiveness, that he truly wasn't this bad of a person. But, he ultimately did confess and was executed. And the king's lines here at the bottom are just wonderful because you might just skim over them and they don't mean anything. But this is an example where if we were to read this a second time or a third or an eighth time each year, they just pop out like in my mind. They're highlighted as we read them and as I hear them. When the king says that there's no art to find the mind's construction in the face, looking at the footnote, there's no way to read a person's thoughts by looking at his or her face. Do you agree with that? I kind of think you can read a lot by somebody's face, but I also like to play cards, so I think that I can read people's faces, that type of thing. But if you know somebody and you're close to them, you can usually tell if they're happy. You can usually tell if they're contemplative and melancholy, if they're thinking about something. And it's interesting that the king says that he can't read somebody's faces. He says it's impossible. There's no art to find the mind's construction in the face. He was a gentleman on whom I built an absolute trust. Well, who at this point do we know he has an absolute trust in? Who does he think the world of? Macbeth. He thinks so highly of Macbeth at this point. Well, yes, his son too. Okay? But Macbeth has just been trumpeted and trumpeted nonstop. And now he's taken this individual, Cawdor, who he had the utmost absolute trust in, and he gave that title and awarded whatever to Macbeth. And now Macbeth seems to have taken over that role. Next page. Macbeth comes walking in with Banquo and Ross, so all these other thanes and such, and the king welcomes them. Oh, worthiest cousin, the sin of my gratitude even now was heavy on me. Thou art so far before, that swiftest wing of recompense is slow to overtake. There is no way that I can pay you for what you've done. More is thy due than more than all can pay. I cannot show you my appreciation. You have done wondrous things. So we see him verbalizing directly to Macbeth's face now his true feelings about Macbeth and the loyal servant that he has. And look at Macbeth's response, a very humble response. The service and the loyalty I owe in doing it pays itself. So that's my job. My loyalty is you, and you don't have to, that's me doing what I'm supposed to do. I don't need, gratitude in, back and forth and such. He talks about how our duties are to your throne and your state children. So it's kind of like, remember when we talked about chivalry and the knights and their allegiance to their kings? This is a different country, Scotland, but we have the Thanes and we have their armies still having this oath, this honorable allegiance to their king. The king addresses Banquo, because we kind of forget about Banquo. Because Macbeth is spoken about so much, he goes, "Noble Banquo, that hast no less deserved, nor must be known no less to have done so." You have done just as much. You need to be, in my mind, in my heart, in my, when I think back to this day and this battle, you will be thought of just like Macbeth. So come forward and receive my gratitude and such. Because remember, it was the battle with Macbeth and Banquo. And he was asking how, were they discouraged? Oh, just like the hair of the lion and, all of that stuff. So it's pretty important. His announcement here at the bottom, if you look down in that blue area there, he announces his heir. He announces who is going to follow him in the line when he dies or when he can't be a king anymore. Okay? And he chose his son, Malcolm. Well, doesn't that seem obvious? That seems obvious to me. Maybe back then it wasn't, this is Scotland, this is 1000s. So this is well before the Renaissance, well before Henry VIII, where we were talking about him trying to have a son to keep going and all that. I just kind of assume when you have a son that they would take over, and so on. But it seems to me that he had to make this announcement. And he says, "Our eldest child, our eldest Malcolm, whom we name hereafter the Prince of Cumberland, which honor must not unaccompanied invest him only, but signs of nobleness like stars shall shine on all deserts." So he is going to take over from here on out. He's going to be my heir. Macbeth's response upon this, because, I should have kept reading. "From hence to Inverness, and bind us further to you." Inverness, if you look at the footnote, is where Macbeth lives with his wife. And they are going to go to Macbeth's house for a feast, a banquet, a celebration of the battle, a celebration of Macbeth and Banquo, celebration of now being called the Thane of Cawdor, a celebration maybe even of Malcolm ascending to become the heir. All of these things, a big party. And so immediately after he announces this, Macbeth says, "The rest is all labor which is not for you." So I'm going to ride ahead and get the house ready and let my wife know there's no use of you coming right now because we have to clean up, get everything ready because, hey, the king's coming. That's a big deal. Okay? And in his mind, and the king responds, "My worthy Cawdor," but look at his aside on the next page, Macbeth. "The Prince of Cumberland. That is a step on which I must fall down or else o'erleap, for in my way it lies. Stars, hide your fires. Let not light see my black and deep desires." So the Prince of Cumberland, that's a step that I must fall down or get, it's an obstacle now. It's somebody that's in my way. Because should something happen to the king, Macbeth isn't the next choice. Not that Macbeth would have been the next choice, but he was the popular person at that time. Is this making sense now? And so now that there's an heir, it's like, okay, well, I want to get to be the king, but now somebody's here, and so I have to get them out of the way or overleap them somehow in order to become king. You see how that's playing out? I got to jump over them. And so as he's exiting, he says that stars hide your fires. So a black night riding, the stars are out. He goes, "Hide, go away, stars, because I don't want your starlight to illuminate my desires so people can see what I'm thinking, what I'm contemplating." Now, he isn't running home to go and kill the king. But remember those thoughts that were giving him a lot of problems earlier on? Those things are starting to, matriculate again, and it's not just about the king. Now it's about Malcolm. And how can I, or how am I supposed to become the king to fulfill that prophecy if now there's somebody else in front of me? Remember, the prophecy did not say, in 3 years you will become king. In 80 years you will become king. Whatever. It never said that. And so he has no idea when it's going to happen. But now he just sees, well, nuts, there's another person in front of me. So this is going to take even longer if by chance I don't do anything. Okay? You see his problem and you see what he's thinking. Make sense? Okay. And so the king, he mentions there at the end, okay, well, let's go. True with the bankman. He's full, so valiant. He's a great guy. That Macbeth is awesome. All right, everybody, let's just kind of, we'll start heading in that direction, but Macbeth will go flying like, Pony Express to get home. And the king will slowly come after him. And he says, it is a peerless kinsman. Without equal is Macbeth. He is just the wonderful individual, so humble and so loyal and all of these things.